Happy Camper Radio with Skip Huber.
It's that time again. Hello, everybody. Episode 174 of the Happy Camper Radio Show is now in your ears. I'm Skip. I am a happy camper. And, of course, my job is to make a happy camper out of you. Have you ever found yourself in a position where you have too much camping equipment that you do not want to part with? Is it time to downgrade? I don't think too many people do that these days. But anyway, on today's show, I'm going to tell you what I did when I found myself into a position where I had to move some equipment around and find more storage space. It's too much gear and short on space. We'll be talking about it today on this edition of Happy Camper Radio.
Happy Camper Radio. Happy Camper Radio.
And, of course, the Happy Camper Radio Show is heard all around the world by great listeners just like you. You can find us in the iTunes Store, on Stitcher, Podbean, Myra Guide, the BlackBerry Podcast Directory, iHeartRadio, and Google Play Music. And also, you can go to our website, www.happycamperradio.com, where you can pick up just about any one of our previous episodes going back to day one. There's so many ways to pick up our show. Listen to Happy Camper Radio today. You can get in touch with us here at the show by calling 404-537-2267, 404-537-CAMP. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter at Camp Talker, add us to Circles on Google+, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. When you visit our website, happycamperradio.com, take the studio tour, see what we're doing behind the scenes, check out some of the photographs we have there, also some very valuable camping tips. They come in handy just about any time that you go camping. It's happycamperradio.com. Right now, I'm going to take you over to the shout-out window. We have some newcomers to the show, people who have signed up this week on social media. I definitely want to take an opportunity to recognize them. First of all, let's say hello to Brian Reichert of Bloomington, Illinois, William Moran of Kirkland, Ohio. They like us on Facebook. To John Strelo of Santa Fe, New Mexico. The fine folks over at TrailerTrader.com. And finally, to Jazil Ramirez of McKinney, Texas. They're following us on Twitter this week. Thank you so much, everyone. Glad to have you on board. More importantly, thank you for being a part of this great Happy Camper Radio family. Would you like to be a guest on the Happy Camper Radio Show? I can make that happen. Something in the line of camping you want to talk about? Maybe that fantastic trip you just got back from? Or maybe just about anything. Camping gear, you name it. We do it up right here at happycamperradio.com. Get in touch with me, Skip, S-K-I-P, at happycamperradio.com. I'll get back in touch with you. If you happen to be out and about this weekend because the weather is ugly where you're living at, you may want to consider taking in a camping and RV show. This coming weekend, if you happen to be one of our local Georgia residents, the Georgia RV and Camper Show is coming to town. It's this weekend, October 13th through the 15th at the Cobb Galleria, the Georgia's biggest RV show. You want to check out some of the 2018 models? If you happen to be in the market for maybe a pop-up camper, a travel trailer, an RV, maybe one of those big old motorhomes. You know, a lot of people drive those around too. Kind of a home on wheels, so to speak. But maybe if you're a tent camper like me, hey, you'll feel just as invited too. I go to those shows, and I mainly go there not only to look around, but also just to be around some good folks. And you can find them there. Anybody who goes to the camping and RV show has camping in their blood, and they really are good people to be around. The Georgia RV and Camper Show here in Georgia this coming weekend, October 13th through the 15th. All right, do you find yourself short on space? Have you collected too much camping gear over the years and you just don't want to part with it? I can understand how you're feeling. Believe me, when I collect camping equipment, I find myself in a position where I may not use that equipment for a very long time, maybe several years, but for some reason I just don't have it in my heart to part with it. To me, that's a good problem to have. Today, I still bring supplies to camp, and I may be at a campground for 3 or 4 days and will never utilize a certain piece of equipment that I brought along. But I have it there just in case I want to use it. I find myself in that position And I could be maybe 5 or 6 years down the road from now, and I'll still be carrying supplies that I bought more than 20 years ago. It may sound stupid, okay? I understand that. But for some people, I understand too that they want to keep things sweet and simple. Nothing wrong with that. The bottom line is, when you go camping, the whole purpose of being out there in nature is to have fun, to relax, to put all the problems in the world aside, even just for a couple days. I get my best relaxation, my best therapy, to get away and just put everything aside for a little bit. I don't care if it's a short distance from home. I don't care if I'm going to the mountains or at a campground I have never been to before. The idea is to get out and have fun, regardless of how many supplies you bring with you. For the folks who do want to keep it sweet and simple, they just may want to bring a tent, a sleeping bag, maybe a roll-out mat. You definitely want to have one of those, especially if you're sleeping on the ground. Maybe a small camp stove, a mess kit. That's really all you need. If you're an individual who goes camping by yourself, maybe if you have your spouse along, you don't really need anything more than that. And some people get by with just a few things. There are some campers who are very content and can have just as much fun as I do bringing a lot of gear to camp. Some people have camped this way all their lives and they're not going to change. Folks like this require very little storage space at home to house all their camping gear. If you by chance live in an apartment, you may know what I'm talking about, and I know a lot of folks who go camping who are apartment dwellers. They come from all walks of life. Very good folks. Campers who typically reside in an apartment have limited space to store their camping gear, and I understand that because many years ago I was an apartment dweller, and I was a camper, and I didn't have much space for anything. You have limited space inside those closets, which are typically reserved for other types of storage. There are some tenants out there who would like more gear, but lack the necessary space to store it. I understand that. Is it possible to have too much camping equipment? Well, that really depends on who you're asking. Campers like myself, for example, spend plenty of time looking for new gear. Here in the metropolitan Atlanta area, there are a number of places I could go to look for camping equipment. Just about every community has a Walmart, and we all know in your Walmart, especially the super Walmarts, you've got a camping supply aisle. Anytime I go to Walmart, I don't care if I'm there to pick up a few things for the house, I'm always going to visit the camping supply department to see what they have. I'm just attracted to it like a magnet. But here in Atlanta, we've got places like Cabela's, we got Bass Pro Sports, we've got Academy Sports, and they're within a reasonable driving distance. The problem is when I get into a place like that, when I get into a store that has nothing but camping equipment, I can find myself there hours at a time just browsing. Very rarely do I visit a camping supply store and walk out empty-handed. I may go down an aisle and spot something and spend about 10 minutes just looking that item over and thinking about what I could use that for in my camping supply inventory. How will this piece of equipment work for me at camp? And believe me, the sky's the limit when you go into those places, folks. I just have a hard time going in there and not buying something. Even if I'm just walking out with some mantles for my lantern, yeah, I will do that. And I've got a big supply of those. That's something I'm never shorthanded on. In fact, I just ordered a couple new pieces of equipment online the other day. If you looked at our Facebook page and you take a look at some of the equipment that I have there, I have 3 propane tanks. I'm talking the 20-pound propane tanks. Well, I just bought one of those trees. You know what I'm talking about? That you connect to your propane tank and you can fit about 3 or 4 different appliances to it. I bought one of those as well as a new lantern to go on top of it. I hope to break that in sometime next month when I go camping up in the mountains. I'm always looking for something, whether I buy it in the store or buy it online. But campers like myself have plenty of time looking for new gear all year long. And not often do I do this, but when I do get into one of the camping supply stores, if I don't buy something then and there, I may spot something at a campground when I'm out talking and just mingling around and meeting new folks. The people to the right or the left of me are my neighbors. And yes, I am a very social individual. I invite people to my campsite. We sit around my campfire. I sit around their campfire. I'm always looking for something new. Is there something that somebody else has that I didn't even think about that I may want to utilize in my camping supply inventory? My radar is always up anytime I'm at a public or a private campground. That's for sure. Let's talk about tents here for a moment. Now, some campers bring a limited amount of supplies with them to camp, as we discussed. They don't mind sleeping in a tent, maybe a small pup tent. I know in my younger years, when I was camping with the Boy Scouts, I had a pup tent, and there were two of us that could squeeze in there. To this very day, there are some folks that don't mind getting down on the ground and crawling in the tent as needed. They don't mind getting up and getting dressed in the middle of the night, maybe for a midnight snack or an evening stroll somewhere, or even if the call of nature is knocking at their door. They need to get up and get out. They have no problem doing that. On the other hand, a guy like myself, yes, I do require a lot of space. And this new tent that I bought, that I'm going to be breaking in here very soon, will give me all the adequate space I need, and hopefully it's going to be a tent that's going to last me the rest of my life. I'm really looking forward to getting out there and going camping. If you're a young family, you probably don't need a whole lot of camping gear to get started. But as your family begins to grow, you're going to find the need to upgrade. Not once have I spoken to people who decided to have a family, and because the family grew, they decided they weren't going to go camping anymore. No, they go out and buy more gear. They go out and buy a new sleeping bag. They go out and buy a bigger tent. Maybe the camp kitchen is going to increase too. You're going to find yourself buying more kitchen supplies, more food to haul into camp. You will find yourself outgrowing your need for space. It does happen, folks, but I consider that a good problem to have. Now, my kids, on the other hand, although they're grown and they've moved on, I have not downsized. I've never had a reason to. We're always looking for more time to go camping. My idea of more camping time is going out twice a month. So that's a big dream right now, and I'm probably not going to see that until my retirement years, which are just around the corner. But there's many options for stowing your gear. The first is to reorganize. If you find yourself getting too much camping equipment, take a look around you. Take a look at what you have in that closet. Do you have things in there that you're never going to use again? Maybe an old ironing board. I have an ironing board. I don't think I've used that probably in about 10 years. I could probably throw that thing out. Maybe there's a bunch of books and papers in there that you don't need anymore that's taking up a lot of unnecessary space. Take some time to do some inventory within your home. See if there are some things that you can discard, maybe have a yard sale, get some things out of there, put a little bit of money in your pocket that you could use to buy some camping equipment. Believe me, folks, you will come up with some space that you never thought you could have. Some apartment complexes offer additional storage space for their tenants. I lived in an apartment one time where down in the basement of this apartment building, they had these cages set up, and they had the apartment numbers attached to each individual cage. And you could put your additional equipment, your additional storage, whatever you had in those cages. I don't like those. The reason being, folks, I don't like other folks to go down there, even though I have a lock and key for my unit. I don't like people being able to see what I have and thinking, wow, they got something a little bit more than I have. And next thing you know, somebody's breaking in there and stealing your stuff. It does happen, folks. I hate to say it, but that's just the way it goes. Check with friends and relatives. Here's another thing, too. If you find yourself in a situation where, you just don't have any space, whether you live in an apartment or you live in a home, and you really need some additional space, all it is just to store your camping equipment, you may be surprised that some friends and relatives could help you out along the way. Self-storage centers. Do you rent a self-storage center because you have too much stuff? Some tenants will rent these storage units on a month-to-month basis. They cannot fit everything into their home or their apartment. They don't want to part with certain things. Maybe they've inherited things that they don't want to part with because, it has a lot of sentimental value to it, and they could find a good use for it later on down the road. They will rent these self-storage centers. Everything you need is going to be at one convenient location. It's a great place to also store your growing camping supply inventory. You just put everything in there, and when it's time to go camping, you just load up and go. For camping gear only, this can be extremely costly. I wouldn't recommend it, even for a very small unit. But, you can do whatever you want. If you think this is going to be feasible and your camping equipment is always going to be there, all you have to do is visit the storage center, load up your camping gear, and go camping. Let's talk about the camp kitchen. Does the camp kitchen grow because your family grows? Yes. In my situation, however, anytime I go camping, I bring everything with me. I would love for the day to come when my kids got together, my nieces and nephews got together. We used to do this every year up in the mountains, get everybody together for an annual camping trip, and we so much look forward to it. But, the kids have all grown now, and they've got their own lives, and they've got their own families. But it would be nice one of these days if we could all get back together, and I certainly wouldn't mind being the guy, the go-to guy, to set up the camp, make sure everybody had what they need, make sure that there was plenty of food, did all the cooking, did all the cleaning. I try to have everything in place when I go camping. That includes the food, the cooking appliances, the utensils, paper plates, and always I make sure I have plenty of plastic forks, knives, and spoons, disposable drinking cups. Again, I'm the go-to guy, and I love having that extra responsibility. If you run out of space like I have, then it's time to do something else. Think about what you're doing and don't make a knee-jerk decision, folks. That's one thing that I took some very careful time in doing when I decided I needed to relocate my camping gear, and I had other things I had to relocate as well. It is so easy to outgrow the space you're living in. For many years, I had a closet in my garage, and I think I've spoken about this before on other episodes. The only other thing that was in that closet was the hot water heater. But even with my camping equipment being in there, I still had very limited space to move around. The closet eventually became too cluttered. I had to constantly move things around just trying to find certain items. All my camping equipment is stored in these big plastic totes, and I have like 6 of them. But everything is very organized on the inside. I could not expand any further in that closet without considering additional storage options. Any time that I had to go in that closet to find something, the very first thing I had to do is pull the car out of the garage, which allowed me room to actually walk in the closet. And then once I got in there, I had to bring things out of the closet into the garage, stack things out there, start looking through things to find exactly what I needed. It became a real chore for me. So I had to do something else. I needed additional storage space. Now, renting storage was not an option for me because the local storage center that I'm thinking about in this area was about 5 or 6 miles down the road. That's a little bit too far. And neither was moving into a larger house. So after giving it some very careful consideration, I decided it was time to expand. Now, again, folks, this was not a knee-jerk decision. This may not be for everybody, but it worked for me. What I did is I hired a contractor to build a 12-foot by 20-foot storage unit. And if you want to see what it looks like, visit our Facebook page. That's facebook.com/Happy Camper Radio. Like us on Facebook if you haven't already done it. But it is a beautiful unit that is seated at the rear of my property. Now, I've got to say this too. It was not inexpensive. It's going to take me several months to pay this off. But sitting down looking at it right now, did I make a good decision? I think I made the best decision possible considering everything that I have going on here, not only with Happy Camper Radio, but my regular household chores and the way I conduct my life and all my camping equipment that I had in the garage. It was time to move on. It was time to do something else. So now I have this extra storage space, and folks, it is beautiful because no longer do I have to worry about pulling the car out of the garage to get to my gear. All of my camping equipment is seated right inside the double doors of this storage shed, and it's off to the left-hand side. It is neatly stacked. If I need to get in there, I've got plenty of room to move around a little bit, find what I need, and better than that, I can also pull my pickup truck. I can back my pickup truck right to the door, and just a couple steps away, I can load everything up within a matter of minutes and start heading out the door and on my way to my camping destination. It doesn't get any better than that. But if you're interested in constructing an outbuilding or an accessory building, we'll call it that, on your property, a couple things you need to think about right from the very beginning. First of all, where do you live? And you need to take the time to research what the local laws and ordinances are regarding an accessory building on your property. I would say if you live way out in rural USA somewhere, where the government really doesn't care too much about what you do, but you still need to get a building permit, perhaps all you have to do is go down to the county government building, pay $5 or $10, and walk out with your permit. Where I live, it's a little more complicated than that. You've got to check with your local government entity and find out what the rules are for building an accessory building on your property. For example, in the property I live on right here, in the county I live in, the building anything larger than what would be considered a 4x8 building. Imagine a 4x8 sheet of plywood right down there on the floor. Anything larger than that is going to require a permit, and you've got to go through the process to get that done. The bigger the government, the more hurdles you're going to need to jump through, and the bigger the government means a lot more red tape. And oh, so I found that out for sure. The paperwork process and the legwork to get this job started took roughly about a month to complete. And again, in the end, it was well worth what I did. I had to produce, first of all, property drawings. I had a drawing that was set to scale as required in the paperwork process. That had to be done. I also had to identify where the septic system was and the field lines on the property. Well, all I had to do is go online to the county website and put the correct information in, and I had that. But I also had to get the approval from the county environmental health department before I could go to the county planning and development office to get the permit. In all, it cost me roughly about $200 in fees just to get started. But once I got that permit in hand, all I had to do is notify the contractor, hey, I'm ready to go. Let's get this building up. And it took about a week for them to finish it. And look how beautiful that building is, folks. And just wait till you hear what else I'm going to be doing with it. I'll be talking about that later on down the road, something beneficial to Happy Camper Radio, because it is a great building. It's a lot of space on the inside. And I have more than just my camping equipment there. Just about every one of my outdoor tools are in that building. Plus, I have some additional storage space up in a rafter that they built for me. So, yeah, I've got plenty of room there in my accessory building. But this new building cost me roughly about $7,000. It's seated at the rear of my property. It's very spacious and attractive, like I say. I have no regrets in building a large structure like the one that I purchased. In fact, the contractor even said when I decided upon this building and the size that I wanted, he said in all the years he was constructing buildings for whatever they're used for, not one person ever complained about having the extra storage space. So if you're going to consider doing something like this for your additional camping equipment, or maybe because you need additional space at home, consider the larger structure, and believe me, you won't have any regrets. There is plenty of room for additional camping equipment should I decide to buy more. Again, the equipment is stored right by the door. I can load it up and just take off in a matter of minutes. And being the fact that I do have my camping equipment there, plus some other valuables, you better believe I have a lock and key on that door. Even though I have a privacy fence all the way around my property that would take somebody a lot of time to crawl over to get to, now, no mind the barking dogs, too, that would wake us up. But I have everything stored under lock and key, and I would highly advise you to do the same. Let me also point this out, too. If you're going to build an accessory building on your property, never, under any circumstances, folks, never build a structure without obtaining the necessary approval from the government entity that you live in. This could result in a citation. It could require an appearance in court. You could face steep fines. You could also be ordered to tear down the structure that you just built. Don't think for 1 minute that you're going to get away with building something on the property. You may know all your neighbors and all, okay, and say, nah, nobody here is going to complain. I'm just going to go ahead and do this. I'm going to save the money. I don't need to get a permit or anything like that. Maybe once or twice a month, you may not recognize that car driving up and down your street, but it could be the county code inspector, and you don't want him knocking on your door asking questions. So it's worth taking the time to get the necessary approval that you need to build an accessory building on your property for your additional camping equipment or anything that you may be storing. Never deny yourself the opportunity to expand your camping horizons, folks. And if that means buying new gear, if you have it in your blood, if you have it in your heart, and this is just how you live your life, like I do, and I think nobody out there will argue that Skip doesn't like camping. Oh, I love it to death. You've seen some pictures that I have on the website of my camping trips. And yes, I've got a lot of gear. It takes me a long time to set it up. I pray for good weather anytime I go out. I'm never blessed with that. But it does not deny me the opportunity to go out and have fun. So if you're looking for additional camping space, just get creative, even if you don't build an accessory building. Look for that additional storage space. Look what you can get rid of. If you have new gear that you want to buy and you're going to require some new space, I'm sure you're going to find it. Whatever you do, get yourself together, have fun, get the family together, and go camping. You just can't beat it. I don't get enough of it at all, and I don't think you will either. It's time now for our featured campground of the week here on the Happy Camper Radio Show.
Happy Camper Radio. Happy Camper Radio.
And this week, I want to take you out to the state of Utah. I've never been here before, and I hope to do that somewhere down the road and visit the Grand Canyon. It is the Canyonlands National Park Needles District Campground in the state of Utah, part of Canyonlands National Park. It is open all the way through November 15th of this year, and if you don't happen to get into the state of Utah to go camping this year, consider it in future years. It is very beautiful just by looking at the photographs on their website. The Needles Campground and group sites are located deep within the southern portion of the Canyonlands National Park in southeastern Utah. The Needles District is a little more than an hour away in driving time from Monticello, Utah, and about an hour and a half from Moab, Utah, at an elevation of, get this, 49,000 feet. You can book individual campsites and group sites up to 6 months in advance for dates within a peak season. There are 3 group sites. The Squaw Flat Group site is situated in the main part of the campground, and the Wooden Shoe and Split Top Group sites are in separate areas of the district. The extensive trail system in the district provides plenty of opportunities for long-day hikes and overnight trips. Foot trails and four-wheel drive roads lead to such features as the Confluence Overlook, Druid Arch, and Joint Trail and Chesler Park. The Needles Campground and group sites are best suited for tents and small, self-contained campers and RVs. A seasonal campground host in the spring and the fall is located in Loop A of the campground. Individual campsites, they have drinking water and flush toilets. They're available. Picnic tables and fire rings are provided. There are no RV hookups. Keep that in mind if you're bringing a travel trailer along. The campground does not have electricity, showers, or a dump station. The group sites, let's say you're taking a lot of folks camping with you. 3 group sites offer 11 or more opportunities to stay in a remote setting in a unique national park. RVs and trailers over 25 feet are going to have a little bit of difficulty accessing these sites. Water and non-flushable toilets are provided. Picnic tables and fire rings are also provided as well. Take a look at their long list of amenities right there on their website. There are plenty of them, and I'm going to have a link to it all week long on happycamperradio.com. You can visit it there. The state of Utah, I hope to visit there someday soon. I hope you do too. It's the Canyonlands National Park Needles District Campground. It is our featured campground of the week here on the Happy Camper Radio Show.
Skip Hubert. HappyCamperRadio.com.
And as always, if you have a campground you would like for us to feature on the show, get in touch with me, Skip, S-K-I-P, at happycamperradio.com, and please make sure you include a link to the campground website. And that's going to wrap up today's edition of the Happy Camper Radio Show, episode 174. You know, every time I do this show, I'm ready to load up the gear and go camping. I wonder why that is. Remember, friends, every pet deserves a loving home. I want you to do exactly like I did. Visit your local shelter and adopt a pet today. You can find us online 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at www.happycamperradio.com. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter at Camp Talker, add us to Circles on Google+, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. The Happy Camper Radio Show is a presentation of Skip Huber Productions. I'm Skip. I am a happy camper. And no doubt about it, my friends, Hang around with me long enough, I will make a happy camper out of you. Talk to you again next week. Have a good one, everybody. You're listening to Happy Camper Radio.